We're back. And you can see I've developed a little bit more of the contrasts in here. I still haven't gotten into a lot of the detail yet. I'm still building up my values and things like that. But I'm starting to get there. Okay, so I'm going to try to do a bunch more stuff here. I'm going to push these contrasts a lot. See what we can get for this piece. One of the things that happens a lot with watercolor, if you're not careful, is that you don't push the contrast. You just let that water just be too thin and indistinct, and it just ends up looking undefined and mushy. So I want us to really try to think about pushing these contrasts and not being afraid of going pretty far with that, all right? Think about where light is hitting and defining our edges, okay? Push this shadow underneath here, underneath these tomatoes, kind of set them into place. So you can start to see how I'm using the lights and darks to define where my edges are and what my surfaces are. The scallops on this bowl. I'm going to have some nice dimension to them. Something stuck on here. There we go. Sorry. Start to build that up. Okay, at this point, I'm going to do a couple more things here. Maybe make this a little darker. Now I'm going to try to do a couple of different techniques in here that I've kind of showed us in the earlier videos, and try to show us how that might come into play. So for this cutting board, which is kind of a real farmhouse cobalt blue painted cutting board, I'm going to lay down a wash, kind of define this tone here a little bit. Now I'm going to have to come back later and add my shadows back into this again because they're kind of getting swallowed up. But what I want to do here is kind of show us how we might use our salt again to add a little texture. So while that's wet, I'm going to sprinkle some salt into that. I'm going to let that dry. In the meantime, I'll go on to another area. I think the place where I'm going to really start to focus at the moment, see I've neglected it, is on the stems of these tomatoes on the vine. So I'm going to start to bring those out a little bit. Get a good medium-sized brush here. Again, my beautiful Winsor Newton. Get some greenish brown for my stems. Get some green. Add some brown into it. Check my color up here. Start to add these in. this is going to help connect all the different elements, because we'll have those stems like we have right here. They're going to start to come in and connect them. All right, another thing I might do is let me demonstrate how we might use a few of the pencils in here, the watercolor pencils. So I'm just going to take a nice russet brown here, and maybe I'll just draw in a little bit of my shading. Like this, so you can kind of see that it's drawn in here a little. Maybe a little bit more over here. Maybe define the edge of this picture like that. So right now it's just like pencil. It's just it's just watercolor pencil. So then if I come in with my brush, I can begin to blend that out and make it watercolor paint again. Because the pencil then gives me maybe a lot more control. I mean, I actually like the control that I get with the brush itself, but sometimes you might feel like the pencil gives you a better chance to get into those little tiny areas. And you can also use it as a bit of a texture, as I described earlier, right? So I can start to lay out some of this, and I've really warmed up that area in the painting. There's a little bit back in here that I spread around. Warm that up too. Kind of tie these two areas together. All right, so I can use the watercolor pencil. A little bit more maybe in here in the tomato. This I can get in. So I put in some red, and I'm going to put a little brown on top of that. I could even come in with a complementary color, like this, a little bit of blue, just like this, into the drawing, and then wash that back as much or as little as I want with this brush, the water. Right? I might decide to leave some of those pencil strokes in, just for some texture. Right, so I can use that watercolor pencil. Just like this. I've kind of forgotten this tomato back in the background here. So let's go ahead and draw him in with the pencil. Remember, we always want those three tones in our forms. We want the mid-tone, then a light and a dark. to create that form of the roundness that's going on in here. Maybe I'll take the pencil even in here. A little bit of scribbling like this. And that's giving me actually a little bit of, just a little bit of texture into this, which is kind of nice. Okay, I'm starting to get a lot more of the contrast built up the way I want in here. Now this piece is still just kind of starting. I'm kind of keeping it very, very general. And I'm probably not going to do too much more on it here. Just so you guys can get into work on your own pieces. I don't want to spend too much time. But I did want to show you some of these techniques here. So do a little bit more here to kind of punch it up just a little. And then we'll wrap this demo up here a little bit, okay? Just a little bit more contrast in here. That's kind of